For one brief second, the old man's warm expression disappeared completely. His eyes filled with sudden hatred as he stared directly at her, almost like he resented strangers invading something deeply personal. Then the smile instantly returned. But the unsettling moment stayed with her long after they left the house. Later that evening, the girl quietly told her mother about this strange moment. During the house tour, something about him felt wrong, she admitted while helping pack boxes inside their old apartment. Her mother dismissed it immediately, explaining that the old man was probably emotional about selling a house he built himself. Even her stepfather laughed it off during dinner. "Old people get weird about houses," he joked. A few weeks later, the family officially moved into the riverside home, and at first, everything felt normal. Furniture filled the empty rooms, new routines formed quickly, and the house slowly began feeling like home. But small, unsettling things kept happening. Cabinets were sometimes left open overnight. Doors occasionally appeared unlocked in the morning. Lights downstairs turned on after everyone swore they had switched them off. Her parents blamed stress and forgetfulness from moving, but the girl could never shake the memory of the old man's sudden, hateful expression during the tour. Deep down, she felt something was wrong. Unfortunately, the family overlooked one important detail after moving in. They never changed the locks. Several weeks after moving in, a violent storm hit the town, while rain hammered the roof and river winds shook the house. Her family left for church, leaving the 17-year-old alone upstairs, resting in bed and scrolling her phone. At first, the silence felt peaceful. Then she heard slow, deliberate banging outside the house, repeated like someone testing the walls. It stopped, and she told herself it was just the storm. Moments later, she heard movement downstairs. Cabinets opening, chairs scraping, and the refrigerator door creaking open. She froze instantly, realizing someone was inside the house, moving calmly, as if they belonged there. The girl slowly got out of bed, trying to convince herself there was a normal explanation for the sounds downstairs. Maybe her family returned early because of the storm, or maybe her stepfather forgot something important. But she knew it wasn't true, because she never heard the front door open. Someone had already been inside. She crept to her door and listened as slow footsteps moved across the first floor. Cabinets opened calmly, glasses clinked, and a chair scraped as if someone sat down like they belonged there. She locked her door, grabbed a baseball bat, and called 911. Then everything went silent, until footsteps began slowly climbing the stairs toward her room. Each stair creaked louder as the footsteps slowly climbed toward the second floor, while the terrified girl sat frozen on her bedroom floor, gripping the baseball bat tightly enough to hurt her hands. The entire house suddenly felt enormous and painfully empty. Rain hammered against the windows while thunder rolled across the river outside. But none of it drowned out the footsteps approaching through the hallway. Whoever was upstairs now moved slowly and confidently without hesitation. The calmness terrified her more than anger or violence ever could, because it felt like the person already knew the layout of the house perfectly. She could track every movement through the thin walls while trying desperately to stay quiet enough not to reveal her exact location. Her breathing became shallow and uneven. The 911 dispatcher remained on speakerphone, whispering instructions to stay calm while officers drove toward the neighborhood. Then the footsteps stopped completely. Silence filled the hallway outside her bedroom, her entire body locked in fear as she stared at the shadow beneath the doorway. Someone stood directly outside the room. She could hear faint breathing on the other side of the door, mixed with distant rain tapping against the roof. For several endless seconds, nothing happened. Then the doorknob slowly began turning. The sound nearly stopped her heart completely. The handle twisted carefully back and forth while the old bedroom door rattled softly inside the frame. She raised the baseball bat with trembling hands while tears filled her eyes. She was barely 5'2" and weighed maybe 100 pounds. If the door opened, there was nowhere to run. The person outside continued testing the handle gently without speaking. Then suddenly the movement stopped. Complete silence returned once more. A few seconds later, the footsteps slowly moved away from the bedroom and began descending the staircase calmly toward the first floor again. Moments later, she heard the back door open quietly downstairs before slamming shut against the storm outside. Even after hearing the back door close downstairs, the girl remained frozen beside her bed, gripping the baseball bat while fear continued racing through every part of her body. The 911 dispatcher kept speaking softly through the phone, asking whether she could still hear movement inside the house. But her mind barely processed the questions anymore. She listened desperately for additional footsteps, breathing or creaking floorboards. Nothing came. Only thunder outside and rain hitting the windows remained. Minutes felt painfully slow while she stayed locked inside the bedroom, afraid the intruder might still be somewhere downstairs waiting silently in the darkness. Every tiny sound made her flinch. Pipes rattling inside the walls, branches scraping against windows, wind howling across the river. Eventually, flashing police lights appeared outside through the curtains, washing the room in faint red and blue colors. Relief nearly overwhelmed her instantly. Officers entered the house carefully while announcing themselves loudly from downstairs. Only after hearing multiple voices moving through the rooms below did she finally unlock the bedroom door. Trembling uncontrollably, she stepped into the hallway while police searched every room in the house. But after several minutes, they found nothing. No broken windows, no forced entry, no signs of burglary. Nothing appeared stolen or damaged anywhere inside the home. One officer quietly suggested the storm noises may have frightened her while she was home alone in an unfamiliar house. But she knew exactly what she heard. Someone had walked through the kitchen, someone had climbed the stairs, someone had stood outside her bedroom door, turning the handle slowly. Her mother arrived shortly afterward looking horrified and immediately wrapped her daughter in a tight hug. Then she asked a question that changed the entire situation instantly. "Did we ever change the locks after buying the house?" Silence filled the hallway immediately, while her stepfather's expression slowly darkened with realization. The answer was no. They never had. The horrifying realization about the locks already unsettled everyone inside the house. But moments later, the situation became far worse. While police prepared to leave, her mother suddenly noticed something strange near the upstairs hallway carpet. Fresh shoe prints stretched faintly across the floor, leading toward the daughter's bedroom door. The hallway had been vacuumed carefully the night before, meaning the marks could not have been old. Everyone stared silently, while one officer crouched lower to inspect them more carefully. The prints were large, muddy, and clearly belonged to someone much bigger than anyone living inside the house. Slowly, the family followed the trail across the hallway. The footprints came directly from the staircase, crossed the upstairs floor, and stopped only inches away from the locked bedroom door where the terrified teenager had hidden with the baseball bat. Then they ended completely. No return footprints appeared nearby because the carpet near the stairs had already dried slightly from the heating vents. The intruder had absolutely been upstairs, standing outside her bedroom. The police officer's expression changed immediately after seeing the evidence. Earlier skepticism vanished from his face entirely. Someone truly had entered the home, but there was still no sign of forced entry anywhere. No broken locks, no damaged windows, nothing stolen. Which meant whoever entered likely used a key. The girl suddenly remembered the old man proudly explaining how he personally built nearly every room inside the house years earlier. Every hallway, every staircase, every lock. A cold wave of realization moved through her body, while another memory surfaced. The brief moment during the house tour when his friendly expression twisted suddenly into pure hatred before instantly changing back again. Her mother slowly covered her mouth while staring at the footprints near the bedroom. Nobody needed to say the conclusion aloud anymore because all of them already understood the terrifying truth. The former owner had entered the house that morning, and he walked through it like he still belonged there. Over the following days, the family changed every lock inside the house immediately, while police attempted contacting the former owner for questioning. But the situation became increasingly disturbing the more they learned about him afterward. Neighbors explained that the old man had lived in the riverside house for decades, completely alone after his wife died years earlier. According to several people nearby, he became deeply obsessed with the property over time and rarely left except for groceries or medical appointments. He spent years maintaining every detail personally because the house represented nearly his entire identity. Some neighbors even claimed he occasionally parked outside after selling the property, simply staring at the windows for long periods before driving away again. The family suddenly realized they had probably mistaken obsession for friendliness during the original house tour. The old man never emotionally accepted losing the home. In his mind, the property still belonged to him regardless of paperwork or ownership transfers. That realization frightened the teenage girl more than the actual break-in itself because it explained why he moved through the house so calmly. He was not sneaking like a criminal, afraid of getting caught. He opened cabinets, walked upstairs, and stood outside her bedroom door because part of him genuinely believed he still had the right to be there. He still carried the old key because he never considered himself locked out emotionally. For weeks afterward, the girl struggled sleeping upstairs alone. Every creaking floorboard sounded like footsteps returning through the hallway. Every storm reminded her of that Sunday morning. She constantly checked whether doors were locked before bed, and sometimes woke suddenly during the night, convinced she heard movement downstairs again. The beautiful riverside house no longer felt comforting or peaceful. Instead, it felt violated somehow. Like invisible traces of the previous owner still lingered in every hallway long after the locks changed. And deep down, she feared one horrifying possibility more than anything else. What if he still had another key somewhere they never found? Even after replacing every lock in the house, the family never fully relaxed again because the break-in changed the atmosphere of the home permanently. The teenage girl became hyper-aware of every sound inside the house at night. Old wooden floors naturally creaked as temperatures changed. But now each tiny noise immediately triggered panic. Sometimes she woke at 3 a.m, convinced she heard footsteps downstairs, only to discover complete silence throughout the house. Her mother began double-checking windows repeatedly before bed, while her stepfather installed motion lights outside and security cameras around the property. Yet despite all the new precautions, fear still lingered constantly beneath ordinary life. The girl especially struggled with one terrifying thought she could never escape. During those 10 seconds outside her bedroom door, why did the old man stop turning the handle and walk away? She replayed the moment endlessly in her mind, searching for answers. Did he hear her crying inside the room? Did he suddenly realize someone else now lived there? Or had he simply changed his mind at the last second? The uncertainty disturbed her more than clear answers ever could, because she understood how differently that morning might have ended if the door had been unlocked. Occasionally, the family still noticed strange things around the property afterward. Lights left on unexpectedly, a gate near the backyard riverbank standing open, muddy marks appearing near basement windows after storms. None of it proved anything, but paranoia slowly infected the household anyway. The once beautiful dream home now carried constant tension hiding beneath everyday routines. Friends visiting the house sometimes commented that the place felt strangely uncomfortable, despite looking beautiful from the outside. The family rarely discussed the break-in openly anymore, because nobody wanted to relive it. But privately, each of them understood one terrifying truth. A house does not stop belonging to someone emotionally just because ownership changes legally. And sometimes, obsession follows people long after the keys should have been surrendered forever. Months after the break-in, the girl looked out her bedroom window during a rainy evening and noticed an old dark sedan parked beneath a distant streetlight facing the house. As she stared closer, her fear grew when she recognized the former owner sitting silently inside, watching the home. He remained there for several minutes before slowly driving away into the darkness. She never told her family because they were already exhausted by fear and paranoia. A year later, neighbors revealed the old man had died unexpectedly, yet the memory never left her. What haunted her most was not violence, but the terrifying calmness of someone who still believed the house belonged to him. Years later, the family still lived in the beautiful riverside house, but the break-in permanently changed how they viewed safety and trust. They realized the former owner never emotionally accepted losing the home he built himself. Looking back, the warning signs seemed obvious. His possessive behavior, unsettling expressions, and strange attachment to the property. The teenage girl especially learned how one small mistake, forgetting to change the locks, nearly allowed disaster into their lives. The family began warning everyone they knew to replace every lock immediately after moving into a new home, because sometimes danger does not force its way inside violently. Sometimes it quietly unlocks the door and walks in like it already belongs there. Years later, the family still remembered the stormy morning when the former owner quietly entered their riverside home using an old key. The daughter never forgot the terrifying sound of her bedroom doorknob slowly turning while someone stood silently outside. What haunted her most was not the break-in itself, but the old man's mindset. He walked through the house calmly because he still believed it belonged to him emotionally. His obsession with the home had erased all boundaries between memory and reality. Ever since, the family shared one warning with everyone they knew. Whenever you move into a new house, always change every single lock immediately. One forgotten lock change gave a stranger access to their home, their hallway, and their daughter's bedroom door. Sometimes danger doesn't force its way inside. Sometimes it quietly unlocks the door. So if you ever buy a new house, change the locks immediately.